You're listening to the Meet the Farmers podcast with me, your host, Ben Eagle. Please remember to subscribe to the show wherever you are listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 297 of Meet the Farmers. I'm your host, Ben Eagle. Today, we're heading across to County Cavan in the Republic of Ireland to speak to Sophie Bell, who is part of a growing wave of younger farmers who are tackling everything from climate resilience to rural representation, all while navigating today's agricultural challenges. We're going to be talking to her about life on the farm, how she took it on, her experience as a farmer in Ireland, the big issues facing Irish farmers right now from her point of view, and a bit on social media as well, how platforms like Instagram are reshaping the way that farmers communicate with the world. Sophie, welcome to Meet the Farmers.
Thank you very much for having me. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's always good to be heading over the Irish Sea as well. Really good to have you on.
Thank you.
Tell us first of all, who is Sophie Bell? Who are you? And if you could describe yourself in a few sentences to someone who didn't know you, what would you say?
I am a young farmer in Cavan, and I am currently in partnership with my father on a 56-acre farm where we are rearing dairy heifers for a local farmer, where we put them in calf for him, and then they go back to his farm to be milked there for the rest of their lives. And I'm also studying as a master's student, currently nearly at the end of these studies, so I'm looking forward to that.
So close. Yes.
And I work full-time off farm, and as well as that, I do social media, which takes up a lot of time as well. So yeah, it's a lot going on, but it's all enjoyable and it's all related to agriculture.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about the farm in terms of the way the business works.
So when I was young, before college, we had this farm and we had only about 6 or 7 suckler cows. It wasn't making any money. It was really going in the bad direction and probably had no future at that time. But then I went to university over in the UK, and I came back then and I was like, okay, it's one way or the other. So we have to make some kind of change here. So we went down the route of taking on someone else's heifers, and every month we would get paid by that farmer and we'd have instant cash flow every month. We know what we were getting. We weren't depending on the markets fluctuating and, so much variation and worry. And 56 acres, unfortunately, it's not a lot in farming terms nowadays. So, it's for a small farm, it's doing very well. And for the first time ever, we're now able to invest into the infrastructure on the farm and actually think about building on the farm, which would have never happened if we kept the way we were going. It's been great to see how it's all going now, and it's great to see that it actually has a future. We have been focusing mainly at the moment on improving the grassland and the soil and making sure it's healthy before we do anything else.
How does your farm in terms of size, I suppose, compare to other farms in the area, in the county? I mean, there are obviously a lot of livestock farms in your part of the world, but is the size fairly typical?
I think farms where I live are very fragmented. Like you'd have a farmyard and your home farm, and then you'd have loads and loads of out farms. But I think the average herd size, say if you were milking cows, you'd have around 100 to 150 where I live. But then further down south in Ireland, you'd have around maybe 200 cows. milking. So yeah, I think you get kind of richer in agriculture as you move down the country.
And you went to Harper, didn't you? What was your Harper experience like?
Yes, it was great. I loved it over there, and it was such a nice change of scenery, and I loved learning everything that they do in their university. They're very practical and hands-on, and they also have really good clubs and societies and a great social life as well. And I think to go to a university where everyone's from that kind of same background or same interest is great. Because I think as well, it's such a small, close-knit community as well. So you really do remember your lecturers and they remember you, and it's really nice to have that. It was really good, and I came home with so many motivations and different ideas. And I think the work ethic as well. They do work really hard. They play hard and work hard.
Yep.
So yeah, they really did help me grow into a great person from when I was a young, vulnerable teenager.
Now, here in the UK, I mean, there's a lot of talk about the age of farmers. Certainly, the average age has been rising in recent years. It's certainly depending on where you look. Some say it's 59, some say it's early 60s, some say it's sort of high 50s. Um, what's the situation? Is it comparable in Ireland?
I think it is quite similar, very much the same demographic, a lot of old farmers, but I think at the same time, that's on paper, but in the background, there can be lots of young people in the picture, but maybe just haven't had that succession conversation as of yet. So I think it is very similar to the UK in terms of the old age farmers being the main operators, but yeah, I think they just like to hold on to it as long as they can, really. I was lucky myself that that's not the case. My dad wanted to see it move on to younger, fresher territory, and he just
Yeah.
wanted to kind of be in the background helping out and various things like that. So that's been really good. Because I know it can be a huge conversation to have, and it can cause a lot of not nice things to happen in families sometimes. But yeah, I'm very grateful that that hasn't been the case here.
And as a younger farmer in Ireland, do you feel supported generally? And I'm thinking here in terms of policy, economically, so just socially, I suppose, socially, financially, structurally.
In terms of policy, no. Um, I'm doing my thesis on this actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, but no, I don't feel supported in that sense. And I think we have this conversation time and time again that you should be working with the farmers, not against them, so that you can have a really good outcome. And you don't seem to ever grasp that. I know in certain things it does happen, but for example, TB, it's a really huge issue here. And they've brought in new measures and new rules, and there's various things that just don't make sense for the farmer, even though they really do want to tackle this issue. They need to be included and involved in the conversation. But in terms of support from the government, I don't think we get it in terms of communication, but we do get like CAP supports and things like that, which is great. But I think they really do need to communicate better with us and have someone there. Because I do think advisors as well, they're quite overloaded with work. So it's hard for them as well to reach out and be able to communicate with us.
Hmm.
Um,
You said that certain things don't work for farmers, in your view at the moment. What would you say those things are?
for example, like they want to implement, for example, your sow goes down with TB. They don't want to repay the farmers for that cow being brought to the factory. Like that is a huge, issue, because if you were a suckler farmer or a beef farmer who had very tight margins and not much profit, if you lost a few of your animals to TB and you were left with maybe, I don't know, half of your herd and you didn't get any compensation for that. It's crazy. You're left with less animals and you didn't get anything for them either. And you've put so much time and effort into those livestock and they've just been taken away from you. So yeah, I think various things like that just need to be thought about a lot better.
Hmm. Are there particular challenges, would you say, specifically for younger farmers?
I think the cost of living kind of intertwines with
Yeah, of course.
farming. Because, example, if I stayed at home and farmed all the time, that would be great, and we'd have probably more time and energy to actually do stuff on the farm and make it better. But I have to go out and work every day during the week to make my living in order to save up for my house or my future, whatever that may be. Like I can't just farm all the time. I could maybe go and get work on another farm and get a salary there. But yeah, it's just things like that. It's not very viable for a lot of young farmers. And I think that can lead to burnout and you can just be exhausted. And I think during the winter, you really just, it's very, very difficult to remain resilient after coming home from working all day to your farm when it's wet and cold and horrible and there's so much to do after. Yeah. So I think it can be quite a tricky place for young farmers, but I think now that it's sunny and middle of the summer and everything's good and there's silage happening, it's all very
Yeah,
enjoyable and it's
yeah.
worthwhile.
And
Um,
then you forget about the winter
yes, you do.
just for a few months. Yeah. I mean, in terms of that classic word balance, I suppose, isn't it? When you've got so much going on, what is your strategy? Might not be the right word, I suppose, but do you find you sort of plan your time around things? How do you plan your time?
It is difficult, and I think it's great to have a routine, um, because that's very important, and it's hard to do that when you're farming. But I think usually I just get overwhelmed if I don't write everything down, if everything's flowing around in my mind. I just usually write everything down and take most of my weekends to kind of catch up on various things that I missed during the week or may not have time for on the farm. Um, and like I can just come back to that whenever I actually have a moment and it doesn't all feel overwhelming. So I think that's one major aspect of what I do. And I always write everything down that I think of because if not, I'll forget it. And you just feel very unorganized and chaotic. But I always take a few minutes or an hour each week, maybe more, to do certain things like exercise and maybe go see friends or something like that. I try my best to, even though it's not always achievable, because yeah, I think if you're working all the time, it can be very exhausting, and you can just turn into a shell.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you're right. I think the social life in particular is something that is very easy actually
Mm,
to go by the wayside, but it's so important, isn't it, to just to reach out and connect with others.
yeah, I really do think that. But I think as well, it's hard to find much to do in the countryside as well. So it does take a good bit of time to commute to somewhere where you can do something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think it's really important to make that time. It's a vital aspect to connect with other humans.
Yeah. And we will we'll return to that subject in a bit, but I just want to segue across to talking about sustainability. First of all, this is a topic that we seem to constantly talk about in farming. But yeah, I'm interested in what you've been doing on your farm, and sort of how this features for you. What does sustainability mean for you, and what does it mean practically on your farm?
It is. a big word, I think. It's quite a large area. But I think for our farm, I never want it to be any bigger than it is. I'd always like it to be this size because it's manageable and not stressful as it would be if it was huge, 200 acres. There'd be so much to think about. But I think for me, I'd love to have this farm labor efficient where you're not overusing your body and you're not damaging yourself, because I can see that in the older generation, they can turn up with really bad injuries later on in life because of all the tearing around they did with because they didn't have the machinery at the time.
Yeah.
So I think that's one big aspect. And I just want to make it easier. So I have herd management apps and we have grass meters to measure the grass, and I have worm kits to measure the fecal counts so that we're not wasting money on wormers, and at the same time we're reducing the resistance problem that there is, and we know whether to dose or not and various things like that, and we know if the animal is in good health or if we need to intervene. So yeah, I think various things like that and GPS, making things, it's all cost efficient and reduces any overuse of fertilizers as well. So yeah, I think that's what sustainability looks like to me. But I think what I want mainly is to just have a steady income and a very easy process on the farm where everything's very organized, which is hard to achieve.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think that there's two things I've picked up on what you've said there. The first comes down to, again, farm size, something that we talked about right at the beginning. That actually that is what you want, and that is enough. And actually, I think a lot of the time in farming, it can be easy to slip into this mentality of more, 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 that you're
Yeah.
actually constantly driving to grow. And yes, of course, farms are farm businesses, and farm businesses generally want to grow in order to be financially sustainable from that point of view. But actually, there is that big question of what is enough, isn't there? And that sort of leads on to the second thing that I drew out from what you were saying, which again is, it seems like you're looking for where are those places where you can see improvements, but critically within the system that you want to create.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You summarized it very well. Yeah,
Good, I'm
no,
glad.
I'd never want it to be a huge operation. I just love it to stay the way it is, but just make it better, which is, it's a good mindset to have. And hopefully I never have to look into expanding. Fingers crossed.
Let's turn towards social media, because you have built a pretty substantial presence. What made you decide to start sharing your life as a farmer online, and give us a flavour of what you post about, and why you do it?
So I started posting on Instagram. It was the first platform that was around at that time. And it was before content creation was sort of a thing, especially in farming. And I just enjoyed photography and posting photos of the cows. And yeah, I just got good engagement from that. And that naturally kind of grew itself. And then eventually, whenever I went to Harper, I started posting a lot of what I was doing there. And that generated a lot more interest. And also, some articles wanted to interview me about moving to the UK to study and various things like that. And then, kind of eventually, the opportunities and the following just started to come in very naturally. And when I left college, then I think I took it actually seriously. I realized, okay, you could be better at this if you put in more effort. And yeah, and at that stage, video content was the thing. We all had to kind of maneuver to getting used to that. And
Oh yes.
Yes. And I think that's where it all kind of ticked off then, is when the video content started. And yeah, I do keep it very lighthearted and not that serious, because my day job is probably not serious, but it can be quite heavy.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to come home to more of that. I want to actually, be a lot more fun and a bit more softer around the farming subjects, because there are great accounts who are very good at doing that online, but I don't think that's the place for me. I enjoy just posting the aesthetics of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And in terms of the reaction that you get from followers towards that, do you feel like you've built a nice community now?
Yeah, I do. It is a really nice community, and I've made some lovely connections through it as well. Um, I I think like social media can be quite a nasty place, but for me, it's been so kind and supportive, and like you can have really lovely, supportive people at the end of your phone. It's brilliant. So it's great to have built that up from from this little farm.
Mm. And then looking ahead, I suppose, and this could be in different parts of your life. So whether that's on the socials, at work, on the farm, where do you see your short term future, and any sort of hopes and dreams you have beyond that? Would that be clearly? I'm guessing it wouldn't be expansion for the farm based on what you said, but any plans you have for the next few years?
I think finish my masters.
That's a
It's
good start.
it will be finished hopefully earlier than August. And then I think after that, it will give me a lot more headspace to focus on some projects. I'd love to have an Airbnb on the farm. It's a great location for it as well. So
Yep.
that's something I'd love to focus on and start looking into. And also building on the farm too, in terms of the sheds and the farm layout. I think we have the plans and everything. We just need to build it now. So that's another huge thing. And I think in terms of social media, I think I need to just sit down and start YouTube because,
Okay.
yeah, I keep putting it off. But I think it would be a really good place to be a bit more in depth and in detail. But I know it takes time and a lot more effort to create the final product. And then I think from my experience, I didn't come from a large farming background, and I think a lot of young people would reach out to me for that advice, or if they don't come from farming and want to get into the industry. So I'd love to, there is kind of a conversation happening to kind of hopefully help implement better resources for younger people to get more involved in agriculture, and it's more accessible. So hopefully that happens as well. But yeah, there's probably more that I haven't thought of, but they're big projects, I guess, and they'll take a bit of time.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds like enough to be getting on with for now, I would have thought. Um,
Yes.
we're going to start to round this up. And I've got two questions to finish the show. The first is a message to the public, and the second is a message to farmers. If you had any message to the public, first of all, what would it be?
I think appreciate the hard work and dedication that goes into your food, and please do shop local and support the farmers, and have especially this time of year, please do have a bit more respect for us on the road as we're driving along in our tractors trying to get our silage harvested. Yeah, there can be a few angry drivers around.
Oh, they can be. Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
And a message to your fellow farmers.
You're all doing a wonderful job. Keep doing what you're doing. And yeah, if you're ever having a difficult day, make sure you reach out to the right person to have a little rant and a chat. It can make the world of difference.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, pick up the phone, although preferably not to me farmers in the next in the next few days. Uh, although this will thankfully be coming out a lot later than I will already be married by the time this comes out, so I think we're fine. Well,
Yeah.
Sophie, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a real pleasure meeting you, and thanks for giving us a little bit of a glimpse into your life over there in County Cavan.
Thank you so much.
We'll leave it there. That's it for today. A huge thank you to my guest, Sophie Bell, for coming on the show. Thank you also for listening. Next time, we will be down in the southwest of England in Cornwall, beautiful Cornwall, and I will be joined by farmer Peter Green. But for now, I'm Ben Eagle. This has been Meet the Farmers, and thank you very much for listening.